Welcome back! This week we're talking about episode 4 of the Blacklist. First off, a big thank you to everyone who offered condolences after watching my vlog last week. It meant a lot to know that there's still good people on the internet. Speaking of being online, I've been totally engrossed in Grand Theft Auto 5 Online on the Xbox 360, and even though I'm no game critic, I will highly recommend it for anyone over the age of 17. And if you just so happen to be on Xbox Live, feel free to send me a friend request. I'll put my gamer tag here on the screen. It's exactly the same as my Twitter handle, but sometimes you have to be consistent to start a brand. Anyway, without further interruption, let's start the review. Quick episode recap. Old naked man in a motel room. Liz continued to look into her husband.
We were in Boston that weekend.
Just like Red said, Liz had a bad day in court.
My witness is gone. Lorca's people contacted you. What did they say?
Mira and Liz tried and failed to get information from Lorca.
You have no idea.
Red proved you can catch more flies with honey than vinegar.
I have a contact.
The Stewmaker brought Liz to his cabin in the woods.
They call you the Stewmaker because of the chemicals you use to dissolve human bodies.
Red devised a way to track the Stewmaker remotely.
Maryland Animal Control, this is Diana.
Mira and Wrestler questioned the Stewmaker's wife.
I have to know, what has Stanley done?
I need to chop her now.
Liz managed to get away, but only for a moment. And Red ended up saving the day in the end.
Where's Cornish?
We've had a little incident. Agent Keene needs medical attention.
The Stewmaker is number 161 on Raymond Reddington's Blacklist. Real name, Stanley R. Cornish. The Stewmaker is a chemical expert who specializes in concocting mixtures that turn the human body into a liquid mess that just washes down the drain. He's a disposal asset, mostly, but as a dentist, he's also well versed in how to cause pain in living subjects. Unlike the previous names we've seen on the Blacklist, Cornish is a husband and a father who moonlights as the Stewmaker to feed a dark urge. Stanley is enamored with the idea of decomposition and the transfer of energy from one state to another. In his own words, he does it faster and cleaner than nature, and he takes a sick pride in his abilities. More sickening is the way he takes a trophy from each of his victims, along with a photograph of them before they're put in the dip. Cornish is played by Tom Noonan, a film and TV actor you may recognize from 1995's Heat, 1993's Last Action Hero, or the series Hell on Wheels from 2011. I think it would have been dynamite to have the Stewmaker played by Christopher Lloyd as a callback to his role as Judge Doom in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, but that's probably why I'm not a casting director. The Stewmaker is eventually killed in his own mixture, and it's an interesting metaphor because in the end, despite trying to live both a normal and criminal life, Stanley was eventually consumed and destroyed by his dark obsession. Either way, I think the Stewmaker presented a much greater menace than Wu Zhang in The Freelancer, especially in how close up and personal he got there at the end. However, Cornish loses points with me for preferring to work in the nude. I try to be all-inclusive as far as body types and preferences go, but a nude Tom Noonan shuffling around covered in chemical burns and scars just makes me cringe. Aside from his unfortunate wardrobe choices, I think Cornish was a worthy adversary to fill the bad guy of the week position. He was odd enough to be unsettling and knowledgeable enough to be frightening, and those two aspects worked in the character's favor. Honestly, I'm just glad I don't have to look at him anymore. The more I watch The Blacklist, the more I find myself more interested in Liz and Tom's story than Liz and Red's story. 4 episodes in, Red is pretty well established. He's working with the FBI to cross names off his blacklist, he's got Luli and Dembe for bodyguards, and he's witty as all hell. Red is a delight to see on screen, but at this point I'm not sure what he could do to really surprise me. Tom, on the other hand, is much more of a mystery, and like I said, I'm much more interested in finding out about him and his secret box hidden in the floor. I'm pretty sure my fascination has to do with Tom's intimate relationship with Liz. At this point, Liz and Red are two very separate people. He's familiar with her, but as far as Liz is concerned, Red is just another criminal in the database, another aspect of her job with the FBI. Tom, on the other hand, is a much more personal situation, and a much higher stake in Liz's life. If he has misrepresented himself, then that's a huge risk not only to Liz's profession, but to her marriage, and even her life. The previews for next week's episode make it sound like the mystery of Tom's identity will factor heavily into the action, and I, for one, am hoping to get some more answers. Speaking of answers, we didn't walk away without some more information. The ballistics report sent Liz into the archives, and she found a box labeled Angel Station, June 23rd, 2012. And it just so happens that Liz and Tom were staying in the Angel Station Hotel that very weekend because Tom had a job interview. I think it's pretty obvious that Tom didn't go to a job interview that weekend. I thought the framing device of the Lorca trial was a good way to present the bad guy of the week. It gave Liz a personal stake in the goings-on and brought the Stewmaker into the picture without Red having to sit everyone down and just check off another name on the list while the teams chase that person around for a bit. Hector Lorca, played by Clifton Collins Jr., was a fairly run-of-the-mill Hispanic criminal stereotype, but there are a few actors out there who can really pull off the ponytail and detached sideburns look. What's really weird, though, is that every time Lorca was on screen, all I could think about was how much he reminds me of Joseph Gordon-Levitt. It's in the chin and the eyes, mostly. Looking at the big picture, it makes sense that Red regarded Lorca with such indifference. After all, he's, in the grand scheme of things, Lorca is just another customer like the man in Haiti. Aside from giving us an excuse to run into the Stewmaker, Lorca also played a big part in the Red and Wrestler team-up as they went to find out where Liz was taken. Wrestler's distrust of Red is understandable, but his one-note FBI hard-ass routine is starting to get stale, so it's good that he showed some skill at quick thinking when he had to come up with a reason to be at a backroom meeting between criminals. Moving on from Lorca, the standout moment for me was Red's ingenuity in using Cornish's dog as a way to find Liz. I really liked the way we saw Red operating in parallel to Mira and Wrestler, essentially showing that cleverness is more effective than protocol. I like Mira and Wrestler, to be sure. They're unique in their own ways while still being special agent types, but they don't do a lot of thinking outside the box, and that's where they fall short. Fighting hitmen in a half-built skyscraper is no problem for them, but tracking down someone who melts people is a little more tricky, it seems. I'm not a big fan of Liz becoming the damsel in distress this week, but I can appreciate the way she handled it. She was tied up and tortured, but she utilized all of her training and refused to give up. It's just a shame she wasn't able to convince Cornish to let her go, or effectively get away on her own. I'm not technically a feminist because labeling myself as such would require that I understand what that means, but I get tired when I see female characters placed in a situation where they need to rely on a man to free them. Liz is not a weak character, she just lacks combat and wilderness survival training. I mean, she's trained to get into people's heads, not compete in the Hunger Games. I'm sure Liz was placed in peril in order to get viewers invested in the danger, but even so, it's been done in the past. Episode 4 was a more superior episode than the two that preceded it. The villain was interesting, the setup was believable, and the ending was satisfying. I'm looking forward to Liz's continued investigation into who Tom really is. I'm hoping that the answer she finds is not as terrible as she thinks it's going to be. Tom seems like a really nice guy, and I don't want to see him turn out to be some horrible person. Red was a delight this week, as always, and it was good to see him adapting to situations and showing his hand a little bit at the end by pocketing that picture from the Stewmaker's photo album. It'll be interesting to continue to see little hints at the reasons for certain names being on Red's list, and if the writers are feeling generous, we may even see full-blown explanations emerge. I enjoyed seeing Wrestler forced to think on his feet and play along with one of Red's schemes. Wrestler needs to drop the angry FBI agent routine and loosen up a bit. I'm not saying he needs to loosen his tie and do a Rodney Dangerfield routine, but pulling the stick out of his ass might be a good start. I'd like to see Mira play a bigger part in future episodes. Right now she's just the second half of the bad cop, scary cop interrogation style the agents have on this show, and it would be good to see some range in her character. Next week, it's a race to save a missing NSA agent in Episode 5, The Courier. Hopefully Red is willing to lend a hand in the search, since we know he's good at tracking people down. As always, please comment below to keep the conversation going, subscribe to my channel for more of these weekly reviews of The Blacklist, and follow me on Twitter to see what I have to say during each episode.
So until next week, I'm Rick D, and thanks for watching.